All right, welcome to the All-American Hoops podcast by Chilltown Hoops. I'm your host, Chris Driscoll, and as per usual, I'm welcomed by my younger brother, Matt Driscoll.
Chris, always a pleasure. Thank you for having me on again.
And a brand new guest here, we have SB Nation's Celtics blog's Noa Dalzell.
Thanks for having me. Great to be here.
Absolutely, yeah. Thanks so much. Yeah, thanks so much for coming on. Yeah, we have a couple firsts right here. It's our first time live streaming on a Saturday, which is great. We usually do Tuesday afternoons, so that's very nice shake-up right there. It's also a very first time we're going to have someone who actually works for the NBA in a way coming on the show. So that's going to be great to have that kind of insight coming in right now. But Noah, before we get started, like I usually wait to the end, but do you maybe just want to give like a couple of your plugs as to where people can find you on social media or somewhere else?
Yeah, absolutely. So I mostly write for Celtics blog right now. You can find all my work on X or Twitter at Noa Dalzell NBA. And then I also have a weekly newsletter with all of my coverage, which you can find in my bio. And I can share a link too. But yeah, that's where most of my stuff is.
Awesome. So you're like Matt and I've talked before. You're definitely one of our favorite Celtics follows. You're like always on top of your stuff. Like always have like the opinions right away. So we were just wondering what to start off, like what exactly like got you into basketball just as a whole, not even just the Celtics.
Yeah, so I grew up playing basketball. My dad played professional overseas for like 15 years. And so it was I always kind of joke, it was kind of like my family's religion playing basketball. Everybody did it. And, from a young age, it was the first and really only sport that I picked up. And then I had maintained kind of a Celtics website in middle school where I would like manually update the standings every single day for literally no good reason. But I was a huge Celtics fan, really enjoyed covering the team, and then kind of got away from it in college, kind of went in a different, direction in my career. And really in the last year kind of pivoted back to doing this more seriously. It's been a lot of fun. So I'm very grateful.
Yeah, manually uploading the standings is something that sounds very, very familiar to me. You're certainly not alone in that sense. And Matt can back me up on that. Yeah, but that's awesome though. So what exactly, with that being said, like what exactly turned you into a Celtics fan then?
Yeah, I mean, I grew up in Boston, so that's one.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was I actually became a fan in 2009, so I missed the championship year. I remember I was watching American Idol during the 2008 finals before I became a Celtics fan. So, and then since then, it's just been, there's been so many different eras, but they've been, it's been a very competitive team, even though they never won the championship during that time, for the most part, with the exception of like a few rebuilding years that honestly weren't that bad. You had the Isaiah Thomas years, you had, since Tatum and Brown joined, it's been competitive every year. You had, the big three, 2010, those years where they were great as well with Rondo. So it's been, I think, Celtics fans are a little bit spoiled. I think people are frustrated that they haven't won with this current group, but even so, we can consistently count on getting really competitive basketball teams. And I think this is probably the most fun team that I've watched. So it's been a particularly enjoyable experience this season.
Yeah, easily the most fun team we've watched. I've been a fan since slightly before that. I would say like since like the 2007 season, so like right before they won. So I was able to experience that. But however, I was only 8 years old, so it's not like it was something I could enjoy that much because I was in bed when they won the championship actually. Yeah, that's awesome though. Yeah. Matt and I's experience as Celtics fans is a little, like we're kind of like you. Like our fandom was inherited. Both our father was a massive Celtics fan growing up, so he just tossed it down to us. Cool. But yeah, so obviously you've been a basketball fan for such a long time. So what exactly got you into like this job, like into like actually reporting about the Celtics? So like what exactly got you to enjoy that?
Yeah, I got lucky. The timing was good. So I saw, I was a big consumer of Celtics blog. I think it's a place where you can get a ton of different kinds of coverage too, news, analysis, features, all sorts of things. And I kind of had this feeling of like, I want to do this more full time. I did take journalism courses in college, and in high school, I managed our sports paper, and I was a beat writer for our different high school sports. So I had some experience. It just wasn't, I didn't think that it was going to be what I do kind of more seriously, and then saw that they were hiring for a staff position. And so, I kind of threw my hat in the ring, didn't really think I had a good chance. And then once I got the position, I realized that it wasn't just writing for the blog, but it was actually, if you wanted to, going to games, going to practices, going to events. And so it ended up being a much more kind of holistic experience than I had initially anticipated, which was just going to be writing. And so I've been effectively, a beat writer covering the team, going to things. So it's been, more than I expected initially, but very grateful that I saw that, I just happened to come across that because there are not a lot of opportunities in this space for getting involved. So it's kind of a lot of bit of timing and luck too.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's all super, super cool. Pretty much every journalist that I've talked to about this, it's always just a matter of, it's, as you said, it's a matter of timing, but it's also just a matter of taking what you can get. So
Yeah.
obviously, you said you did a lot like throughout high school and just doing everything to get you from the door. So that's awesome. We'll talk a little bit about your experience reporting. So this is your first season doing this, right? Or is it, like, if I'm not mistaken?
This is my first season, actually covering the team.
Cool. So, and like, I feel like there could be a million right answers for this. But who do you think is your favorite player to either ask questions to just have a conversation with? Who is that to you?
Yeah, I find that generally speaking, like the bench players are kind of more fun to talk to just because they are a little bit less sick of the media responsibilities. Like if you're Jason Tatum or Jaylen Brown, like you're literally at the podium every single night being asked like pretty much the same questions. So I can't blame them at a certain point for being a little bit disenchanted by it. Although they're both very nice to the media. But recently I went to an event with Xavier Tillman, got to ask him a couple questions. He was super nice. I've heard he wants to be a broadcaster. So a lot of times people that have some sort of like media aspirations are a little bit like nicer or like more friendly to media, because they obviously understand or kind of like respect the profession a little bit more. So he's been really nice. Derek White's really nice. He's someone that like will just say hi to you, like remember people's names. It's just kind of a normal person. Like they all really are kind of just normal people, but across the board, people have been really nice to cover. I think I was a little bit intimidated to cover Joe Mazzulla because, last year watching all the press conferences from home, I was like, okay, this is, you can't ask any stupid questions. You can't, he might just get upset about things. And he's pretty fair, honestly. Like it's not, once in a while I ask something and I can tell it's like, he didn't love that question. And then I think about it, I'm like, probably wasn't the best question, but he's generally speaking, like uses the press conferences as an opportunity to teach us and inform us about the game that he's obviously like gifted in. So I've enjoyed covering him too.
Yeah, it's funny. Yeah, Xavier Tillman. He's someone that I've enjoyed listening to. But I guess because he hasn't been with the team long, that he's not really someone that like you think of who's like most likable person on the team. People think of Tillman. Yeah, he's a great guy. But I know that you're also a huge fan of Peyton Pritchard as well. Of course, you gotta love him. Both of us love him and Luke Cornett a ton. So just as you mentioned, the bench guys are they're always a ton of fun to listen to.
Yeah, Peyton Pritchard. I recently I tweeted like earlier in the week that I thought he has an all-star potential. And I kind of just, I tweet a lot during games, but yeah, I got a lot of backlash for it. Like people were in my DMs, like I've never said people so much that as I did then. And I think it ended up in a little bit of Miami Heat Twitter too. So I'm so grateful for the stint that he's been on because it was like the perfect response to my tweet that he went on and had like a couple of really good games. He could have gone in and like had some goose eggs. So I was really grateful. Milwaukee, all of the reporters were like, you got saved by his play tonight because that takes looking better and better every day. But yeah, he's been really, I think, phenomenal, especially during this stretch where him and Luke and Sam have been kind of critical to the Celtics winning 8 in a row while kind of alternating resting starters.
That really surprised me. The Miami Heat Twitter like made to that side. They're usually so nice. I don't know why they. Yeah, I don't know why they would do that to you. Yeah. But yes. Since you kind of laid into the talk about the 8-game win streak, we'll just talk about how the season's going as a whole. And usually when like everything is going great, there's not really not much to talk about. But I still feel like with this team, there's just so much that you can look at and appreciate while also analyzing some of their faults as well. So I guess Matt, both Matt and Noah, you can both answer this. Who do you think is going to be like the X factor into like if they want a shot at winning the title?
I can take this one at first. I think I've said it before a couple times in this podcast. I think Porzingis is totally the X factor here. I know once we traded for him, we were all pretty sad that Smart was gone, heart and soul of the team. But he is just fit in flawlessly here. He really, uh, opens a new door for the Celtics. With can space the floor, and he could, post up. I forget what percentile he was. He was 90 something percentile in post ups last year, and this year it totally added a new element to the Celtics that they really didn't have. He's a mismatch nightmare for a lot of people. And also his defensive side has really improved the Celtics defense as well. It was already a good defense last year, but just rim protection is huge. So yeah, I think Porzingis is the X factor.
I'm gonna maybe have a surprising answer. I'm gonna say Jason Tatum, because honestly, like you have a great supporting cast around him, and it's more than a supporting cast. Like Jaylen Brown is more than a supporting cast at this point. But ultimately, like when it comes down to the finals and some of the maybe even the Eastern Conference Finals, it's gonna come down to like who superstar is playing better. If Jokic and Jamal Murray are playing at an extremely high level, and Jalen and Jason aren't, even if they have the better supporting cast around them, and Porzingis and others are playing well. I don't think it's going to go well for the Celtics. And so his ability to maintain kind of playing at his potential and at the highest level that we've seen him play for extended stretches, playoffs and regular season, I think is going to be really important. Like if he has a really good postseason, like I think they win this title on ultimately. And obviously health is an important factor as well. Like you don't want to lose any of the major guys, but I think a healthy Celtics team with a Tatum that's playing really well is going to be pretty impossible to beat.
Yeah, both of those are fantastic answers. And yeah, obviously with Porzingis, he's like the first like elite big that we've had in probably since Garnett. Like as great as Al's been, he's never been like a true like a traditional big. But yeah, obviously Porzingis is over 7 feet and can stretch the floor, so him staying healthy is going to be essential. Yeah, but no, it's actually funny that you say Tatum is the X factor, because I actually think that Dan Greenberg of Barstool Sports would probably agree with you, because he has said since the beginning that you can put all the great role players around you, can build the correct chemistry. Joe could be pushing all the right buttons around the world. If Tatum and Brown aren't the ones to show up, they don't have a shot. You saw like, because we had this conversation last year or 2022. If Tatum has an average series, they win the finals. If Jaylen Brown has an average game 1, 2, 3, and 7, then they probably make the finals. I don't know if they win, but they make the finals.
Yeah.
So yeah, like all of those things matter. Like all of the intangibles, all of that. If your 2 stars don't show up, you don't have a shot.
Right. And you can afford to have some of the role players not show up. Like Michael Porter Jr. could buy a basket in the finals last year, and it was fine, right? Because he's not like who they actually need at the end of the day. Like he's kind of a nice to have, him going off for 30 the way that he's doing right now. So even if Drew Holiday is struggling, like there's margin for error on this team, and that's what's been so brilliant about the way that they've assembled this roster. And I think Tatum and Brown will show up. We've seen them play really well for, far and away most of the season. And I think they have those release valves too, like Porzingis. So they're not going to be able to get the same defensive pressure they got in the Miami series with some of those other assets.
Absolutely. And I realized like it was about 10 minutes before the show started. You tweeted out like a list of the standings, and it looked like it was, based on the way that it looks like, there's a very, very high chance that the Celtics are going to be playing either the Heat or the Sixers, in which both of them played each other 7 games last year. Assuming both teams are healthy, which we can assume both teams are healthy, who would you rather be facing?
Yeah. I mean, a Sixers team with Joel Embiid was one of the best teams in the league before he got injured.
Yeah.
I think people are forgetting that now because they've been like just skyrocketing down the standings without him. So probably I would say Miami would be a better matchup in the first round. Again, I think Miami has been dealing with so many injuries this year too that it's hard to say, what they're going to look like healthy. Ultimately, the way I view it is if either of those series are a problem, like if they lose to either of those teams, like they weren't going to win the finals anyways, like that's, then clearly this team's not who we thought they were. If they can't come out, in the first round here, like they weren't going to come out against Denver in the finals, presumably. So I'm not too worried about it, but I do think it's kind of ironic that the way you're rewarded, and it's not anybody's fault, but the fact that they have the best record by so much, but they actually might have a pretty challenging first round matchup. It's a little bit unfortunate. Like I would say the Pacers, the Cavs, the Magic, teams that have had much better records this season would all be easier first round matchups than either of those 2 teams healthy. But there's a good chance that Embiid's not healthy. And so, dealing with the Sixers team without him, I think would be a pretty ideal first round matchup.
Yeah, I would totally agree. That I would rather play the Heat over the Sixers if both teams are healthy. I think it's ridiculous that we can't escape the Heat or the Sixers any playoff series. Like we have the best record in the league, and we're gonna be playing the Heat again. But yeah, I don't know if Embiid will be back for the playoffs. I know there's not really a foreseeable timeline on him yet, I believe. Um, but I think a Sixers team without Embiid would be a pretty easy first round matchup. So we'll see.
Yeah, I do not want to play the Heat in any series whatsoever. And as much as the Sixers may be the better team, the Heat have given me way too many heart attacks, and I think that as much as people milk playoff Jimmy, he's a real thing, and even if he plays bad for the first 42 minutes of a game, he has shown that he can light it up in the last 6 minutes. He did that last year. He even did that last year in Game 5 of the Finals. He did that in Game 6 of the Derek White buzzer beater game, where he was playing awful for the first little bit, but then he really came in clutch at the end until the Derek White shot. So I don't know. Yeah, I think the Sixers have the better roster, top to bottom. The Heat are better coached, but so like yeah, even though you could definitely make the argument that the Sixers, not only do you can make the argument, I think it's very objectively a fact that the Sixers have the better roster, but I just don't want to play the Heat. And that's a team it's just going to be super tough to come against. But no, I think it's interesting how you brought up the Cavs would be an easier matchup. They're actually one of the teams that I'd be most concerned about, actually, because yeah, what was that?
Yeah. No, continue.
Yeah, you're good. Yeah, so the Cavs are just a team that we've struggled with lately. Not only in the game that we blew the lead in the fourth quarter, but also last year. There was a game that they got brought to overtime, in which Tatum had the dunk to tie it up. There was also the game where Tatum didn't play and the Grant Williams missed free throws. So they've just had a handful of times where they've just gotten the best of us. And even though I don't know if I would trust Donovan Mitchell, Darius Garland backcourt in the playoffs, like the Knicks kind of exposed that last year, but I don't know. This team just feels a little bit different to me. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say. Ultimately, none of these teams should be a challenge. And the way that I kind of view it too is thinking about the 2022 Celtics, and they a lot of teams were trying to avoid playing the Nets and kind of tanking games in order to do that. And the Celtics kind of faced it head on and swept the Nets. And I think that series gave them a lot of confidence that they needed to then go ahead and make it to the finals and come close to winning a championship. And so in a way, I think you getting a difficult first round matchup like Miami, maybe it gives you that boost of like, this year is different. We're not afraid. We're not trying to duck a particular matchup. So whereas if you play a team like, it could happen that they play the Hawks or the Bulls, which would obviously be an easier matchup from a skill set and talent perspective and standings too. I think that we're kind of overlooking that just because it's like I don't think it'll happen, but it could very well happen, right? It's just play-in. And I don't really love that either, because I think then you're looking into the first round like, okay, this is going to be a really easy one. We can start thinking about the next round already, and you don't want to ever overlook opponents, though we haven't seen this team do that as much. So I don't mind the idea of a difficult first round matchup to kind of give them that momentum that maybe will actually benefit them in the future.
Well, we actually saw it last year against the Hawks. We were looking at we had to go back to Atlanta. That was and that was kind of ugly. I don't want to say that could have been a game that drained them out, but it's a high possibility. And yeah, I definitely feel like that was more the case in 2020 than in 2023, like where they get too tired by the time. But yeah. But like you said, if we can't beat these teams, we're not asking for a sweep, and we're not even asking for them to blow them out in 4 games, maybe just in a 5-game series. We're just asking them just no drama, really, just win the games that you need to win and just take care of business. So yeah, that's what I'm hoping happens there. But obviously, yeah, I guess the last team that we'll talk about is the Bucks, because they're the 2 seed as of now, and obviously since day one, as disappointing as they were in the beginning half of the year, and they've been disappointing lately as well. I still feel like no matter what, I think they're the second best team in the East. It's like I feel like you can even argue that the gap between 1 and 2 is smaller than the gap between 2 and 3, like despite what the standings say. obviously Giannis has his playoff struggles, but he's still a top 2 player in the league. So I don't know what you guys think about our chances against Milwaukee, or even Milwaukee's chances against us.
I totally think that the East is the Celtics to lose. I think they've shown it this year that they are the best team in the league. However, like you said, like playing Giannis in the playoffs is never going to be an easy thing. He's a matchup nightmare, and then they have struggled though. Their perimeter defense is still not that great, even though they have picked up like guys like Patrick Beverly. I think that will be exposed in the playoffs, but I never want to run to Giannis in the playoffs. But I do think that eventually they will. I think that will be the Eastern Conference Finals matchup, and I think that Celtics should be able to deal with them.
Yeah, I mean, Milwaukee, I think is going to be a really tough opponent in the playoffs, because at the end of the day, like Damian Lillard hasn't had a great season, but he's still shown that he has that clutch factor where down the stretch he can take over games. He's done it, time and again just this year, probably more so than any other player in the league this year. And so certainly, like, it's not an ideal matchup. I would not be surprised if it ends up being the Eastern Conference Finals. I think that would be a really fun series from a basketball standpoint. And at the end of the day, Giannis is going to be a tough opponent to play against. And there's also a factor of like, are you hobbling into the finals, or are you well rested and heading into the finals kind of without major injuries and things like that? I think Denver really benefited from, not losing many games before the finals and kind of heading into the finals at full strength. Whereas the Celtics, every series last year was really stretched out. And so part of my consideration with matchups and who you want to avoid and who you want to play is it going to take everything out of you? I think the Bucks will be a tough one with Giannis. I think Miami will be a tough one in that regard as well. But I would love to see Milwaukee versus the Celtics, just because I think it'll be a great series from a basketball standpoint. And they are still defensively really bad, weirdly enough. Like I saw in the last 10 games, or the 29th defense over the last 10 games. And just watching, I was at the game on Wednesday, and like at certain points I was sitting with some of the other reporters at press row, and we were just like, watch this defense. Like at certain moments, they're totally out of sorts, wrong rotations, everything. Like I don't think Celtics made them pay as much as they should have. So I don't know how much you can turn it up in the playoffs, but for the most part, I felt this year that defense is not going to hold up well against a Celtics team. So I think the Celtics should have not a kind of major issue with them. Honestly, I still think Miami is probably a tougher opponent than Milwaukee, just from a defensive standpoint. So, but again, we have a lot of it is speculation right now. I think we'll know more once the ball gets rolling and we see what kind of Milwaukee team we're actually seeing in the playoffs. What kind of Miami team, are the 76ers healthy? There's a lot of uncertainty right now too.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that the Bucks are like that bad, have been that bad defensively, because it's something that I didn't realize. But I saw like another stat that said since Doc, because I remember like since Doc took over, like they were like in like the top 5 for like a little bit defensively. Like it has like shrunk down to like 14th since Doc took over, which like that number looks a lot worse when you consider how great they were to start. So yeah, like I'm still concerned to face them in the playoffs. Like that's a series where like it might depend on which Chris Middleton shows up. Is it the Chris Middleton that we've seen the past 2 years where he's just been a little disappointing, or is it the Chris Middleton that used to be the Celtics boogeyman, where he would be the there's like a list of like Celtics killers. He's on that list. Goran Dragic is on that list. Bojan Bogdanovic is on that list. So just guys like that. Wondering if like I think Middleton would be the X factor in that type of series. But as Noah mentioned earlier, if the Celtics like don't get past some of these guys, like they weren't the team that they thought they were, so that should be interesting. But we'll go out to the West now, because obviously we would have to face one of those teams to get to the finals. As of now, the standings read OKC is half a game up on the Nuggets. Then there's a bit of a dip between Minnesota's the 3rd seed, the Clippers are the 4th seed, the Pelicans are the 5th seed. And I believe after that is the Kings that are the 6th seed. So then obviously in the play-in tournament, there's the Warriors, the Suns, the Lakers, and the Mavs. In my opinion, I definitely think the West is a lot more wide open as far as it goes for matchups. Like I do feel like that a lot of these teams could beat each other. Even like the lower seeds could beat the higher seeds depending on matchups. So I think we all agree. I think we all agreed that Denver is probably the biggest threats, simply based on experience, based on the fact that Jokic is the best player in the league, hands down. But yeah. I guess we'll talk about the Nuggets. The Nuggets to begin. Noah, what do you think would be the best way to what do you think is the best formula in order to either slow down Jokic or to beat them?
Yeah, to me, it's honestly less about slowing down Jokic because I don't think you can. It's more about taking away some of those secondary guys, like Aaron Gordon in particular, for me would be one. So, like when the Celtics played them in Denver a couple weeks ago, Aaron Gordon had like a couple wide open shots towards the end there. He just kind of hangs out by the basket, and everybody gets so worked up about Jokic being there that Jokic just kind of dumps it off to him, and whoever is guarding Aaron Gordon has to really make sure to take him out as a factor. Jamal Murray, like I loved what I saw from Jaylen Brown guarding him down the stretch there in Denver. Like, can you limit Jamal Murray's effectiveness? I don't think you're going to be able to limit Jokic ultimately. And if you focus too much on him and try to, like we see teams double him, it doesn't work, right? He just makes you pay for it with his passing. So ultimately, to me, it's going to be like you have to contain at least a few of those other guys, like Michael Porter Jr. The way that he's shooting right now, like you can't allow that, right? And he has length, and he's a mismatch for a lot of opponents. So it's a really tough team. I think they're the toughest matchup in the league for probably everybody. So it'll be challenging, and I think if they do face off in the finals, it'll probably be a long series, and I could see it going either way. So I think a lot of the Celtics fans' confidence because of the regular season dominance should probably be tempered a little bit, just because Denver is the defending champion and has been playing really exceptional basketball, especially since the All-Star break. But I'm going to be curious about whether they kind of deploy Al Horford on him, because we saw a lot of Porzingis guarding Jokic during the regular season, and it did not go over very well. And I think we probably all could have guessed that it wasn't going to go over great, just given their physical kind of mismatch. So I expect Al will have a larger role to play defensively, as he usually does in the playoffs when they kind of unleash him and have him guard opposing bigs. But I'm curious what that looks like, because we haven't seen Al take on tough defensive matchups much this year.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. Nobody in the league, I think, can guard Jokic or really limit him in any way. So it's really about limiting the role players and stuff, even though Jamal Murray isn't like a role player, but trying to stop him, like putting, Celtics could match up well with him, got a lot of options, Derek White, Drew Holiday, Jaylen Brown. But I also think the Nuggets are the team to beat in the West, and with their home court advantage, 28-6 at home. I think if the Celtics do meet them in the finals, it will be a long series. It will be tough to beat them. But like you said about Aaron Gordon, just hanging out in the dunker spot, and it's about limiting those guys, because you can't really limit Jokic. The Celtics kind of did this in 2020 with Embiid. I think that was the first round they played the Sixers, where they ended up sweeping them. They kind of just let Embiid get his. I know it's different because Jokic can hurt you in the passing game way more, but I think maybe you put Horford on him, maybe even Tillman. You try Tillman on Jokic, just anything to try to slow him down a little bit, even though I don't know how possible that is.
Yeah, I totally agree. It is a little bit different, I think, with Jokic, but yeah, I like the idea of just kind of like accepting that.
Yeah, I know the Heat tried to do that last year a little bit, where they just tried to turn Jokic into a scorer. And yeah, it's funny. Yeah, it just even Eric Spoelstra, the best coach in the league, like they just had like a really tough time just making adjustments to do that. And yeah, like I definitely feel like it was just a matter of the Nuggets being just a much better team, as to why they like the Heat were really no match against the Nuggets. And with the Celtics, as much confidence that I have in Joe, it's gonna probably come down to chests, making the proper adjustments, while also just being more talented for guys 2, 3, 4, and 5, rather than as much faith I have in Tatum. I don't know if I see a world where he's gonna be where the Celtics win because Tatum outplays Jokic. Yes. Yeah, I'm sure we'll talk a little more about the Nuggets in a sec. But besides the Nuggets, Matt, who do you think are going to be who do you think would would give the Celtics the hardest time in a finals?
Besides the Nuggets, I would probably say the Timberwolves. I just think defense is extremely important in the playoffs, and they have the best defense in the league. So the Timberwolves are really scary matchup for the Celtics, I believe, too. I know people really clown the Rudy Gobert trade. I know it was a ton of picks, but he just, increases their defense by an insane amount. I don't know when how healthy Cat's going to be in the playoffs, but obviously he's a massive X factor. And then Anthony Edwards is an up and coming star. He would be a problem. But also the role players on the Timberwolves are very good players. You got McDaniels, you got Mike Conley, who's just, I feel like he always kills the Celtics when they play him. He's just a really good player. I love the way he plays the game. So yeah, I would say the Timberwolves are probably the biggest factor.
Yeah, that's a good pick. I think people are kind of sleeping on them because maybe, in part, I think maybe because people like Karl Anthony Towns and Rudy Gobert are a little bit underrated league wide. But also, yeah, I think they have all the makings of a championship team. Like they have really good defense. They have a veteran guy who is kind of a team leader in Mike Conley. They have a superstar. They have a secondary star. So, I agree with you. I think they would be a very challenging matchup. In both games we saw between the Celtics and the Timberwolves this year were down to the wire, kind of evenly matched games. And in the second one, I believe they were without Rudy Gobert. So obviously that makes a difference, especially in the way that Tatum and Brown are able to attack the rim. You have seen at points that playing against rim protectors like that does alter their decision making, and so I can imagine that would be a challenge. I think at a point this year, the Clippers were looking formidable. Like, I think heading into the All-Star break, a lot of people were asked at All-Star break, like, who do you fear the most? Who's been the best team in the league so far? And the Clippers were a common answer among players at All-Star weekend. They have since played a lot less good. But even so, I think at their best, they also pose a difficult matchup because you have Kawhi, you have Paul George, two tough wings that I think can handle Tatum and Brown better than probably most duos in the league. And then you have Norman Powell, one of the best 6 men in the league. You have Russell Westbrook coming off the bench that can kind of change a game. James Harden at his best. So they have a lot of the pieces, I think, if they click. But honestly, like, I don't know if the Clippers are ever going to be my top choice just because with the lack of playoff success from every one of those guys, really, besides for Kawhi. I mean, and Westbrook too at points. But I think I would probably say the Timberwolves as my number 2, behind the Nuggets as well.
Yeah, the Nuggets are the Timberwolves are a great pick for sure. I do believe that the initial report from Woj said that Cat is hoping to be back by the Western Conference Finals. I believe in Anthony Edwards and Rudy Gobert to lead the team to the conference finals, like without Cat. I think that's a very realistic, very realistic scenario. And the Clippers were my pick to come out of the West in the preseason. That was before the James Harden trade. So he's obviously someone that's really hasn't earned the benefit of the doubts to step up in the playoffs. But however, if he's the third option and really embraces the whole third option role and letting Kawhi be playoff Kawhi, that's another reason why I would really have a hard time against the Clippers, is simply because when Kawhi's in the playoffs, there's really, I don't know if there's more than 5 guys that you would take over him at his best. So those 2 are interesting options for sure. And I realized that none of us picked the Thunder. The Thunder are our team that I've always been, but up until this year, I was always kind of low on them because I usually don't really project a team to be good until I actually see them be good. So I'm pretty sure that I had the Thunder in the play-in tournament, in the play-in seed this year, like when I did my preseason projections. But that being said, they've been fantastic this year. I think they're up there with the Celtics. They might even be like a little bit ahead of them as far as it goes for two-way ability. Like I think they're both. I think both of them are the only 2 teams that are top 5, maybe even top 3 in both offensive and defensive rating. So no, I'm not sure what your opinions would be on that.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Thunder they're going to win a championship with this core at some point, probably. It's unlikely that in their first season in the playoffs they're going to win a championship. And ultimately, if they beat the Celtics, that's what will have to happen. So that's why they're not up there for me. That being said, I'm as big an SGA believer as they come. I do think he's made for the playoffs. I think what you saw from him in FIBA showed to me that he's not, he doesn't have the playoff pedigree. We don't know what he looks like, in a 7-game series, but we do know that he stepped up in big moments, like he did in FIBA versus the US team. And so I think they're going to be a really tough out for anybody. I wouldn't be shocked if they made the finals. I think they're up there. They've had the best record in the West for much of the season for a good reason. And they also have a pretty complete team from a roster standpoint. But I think next year or the year after that, they'll be a tougher out. they're probably going to make, have some first year mistakes that are made when you have a core go together, similar to like the earlier Celtics of Jason, Jalen and Jason, who maybe exceeded expectations, were a little bit ahead of schedule, made deep runs, but weren't able to get there yet. So I think that's probably going to be the outcome for the Thunder. But that would be a fun matchup as well. I would not hate that.
Yeah, I totally agree. I thought it was interesting. Nobody picked the Thunder, but I guess it's because of their age. Like you said, it kind of is reminds me of the Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum younger years when they're a little ahead of schedule. But they've been the one seed in the West for almost the whole year for a reason. They would be definitely a tough matchup for the Celtics in the finals.
Yeah, 100% agreed with all that. And yeah, people like to doubt the younger teams, which I'm certainly no. I'm certainly one of those people that does. But I'll gladly call myself wrong if that ends up being the case where they overachieve in the playoffs. But I guess like the last couple teams we're talking about in the West is just the 4 teams that are just either I don't know whether they call them underachieving or if they're just teams that are living up to what they're supposed to be, but they just have the big names. So between the Warriors with Steph, the Suns with KD, the Lakers with LeBron, and then the Mavs with Luka, do any of you seeing any of those teams making any either upsets or making like a big run, kind of like the Heat did last year?
I mean, like you said, they have a lot of big names. Like you never want to count out Curry, or you never want to count out LeBron or KD or even Luka in the playoffs. However, I think that the top 4 teams in the West are just head and shoulders above those teams. Like I don't see them beating the Thunder, the Nuggets, the Timberwolves, or even the Clippers in a 7-game series. Any of those 4 teams. So yeah, I just think maybe the age is finally catching up to these guys. Not them, but just their teams. I don't think they're good enough to beat the top 4 teams in the West.
Outside of Denver, to me, I think any of those teams could be upset. Honestly, I don't think that they will, but I would not be shocked if the Warriors somehow found a way into the playoffs, despite the fact that they're almost out of the play-in right now with the Rockets making a push. I would not be shocked if the Lakers figured it out, though they don't look. I mean, last year it wasn't like it came out of nowhere. Their playoff run, like they were much better towards the end of the season, and we're not seeing that right now. But at the end of the day, like I'm not going to bet against LeBron in a series against a team that's unproven and doesn't have that playoff experience, especially when you do have guys like Austin Reeves and AD that we know have stepped up in big moments before. Luka and Kyrie, I think they're interesting. They're going to be, at their best, they're going to be a tough out for any team. But I don't think that team as a whole right now is ready to compete, at a serious level. I love all of those matchups for the Celtics. So going into the year, I was like, I'm hopeful that one of these teams is a finals team because I think they would be a really good matchup for the Celtics. In particular, the Warriors. That would be my dream, seeing them have a rematch of 2022, except I think the Celtics would be much better positioned this time around. But yeah, I wouldn't be shocked if any of those teams find a way to make it to the second round, despite the fact that they have not found consistency all year. Maybe I would say Phoenix is the most likely to, just because they think they've been the best of those 4 teams. And they have dealt with a ton of injuries. And I think with Devin Booker, I don't know their record with Devin Booker, but they've been a much better team when he's been available, and he's missed extended stretches and they've looked much worse without him. So they'd probably be my top pick as far as if someone is to make a push. It'd probably be Phoenix. But Phoenix has looked not great when we've seen them versus Celtics. I think they just don't have enough. The bench players that they were kind of like taking a gamble on just haven't stepped up in the way that maybe they hoped. They shipped some out. They got some new ones. I don't think this new cast is going to be a difference maker either. So sometimes it's not, I don't think it's Katie's had a great year. Devin Booker's had a good year. It's not like they've been the issue, but I don't think that roster is assembled for a deep run either. But it'll be really fun. Yeah, I think the Western Conference play-in race will be really exciting just because of all the names that are there and the potential too.
No, you're a lot less of a grudge holder than I am because you're wanting to play Miami in the playoffs and then you're wanting to play Golden State in the finals. Those 2 teams, like they just cause me too much stress. I don't want to face them again. But obviously,
yeah. Jason Tatum's been asked, who would you want to? I'm pretty sure he's been asked about who he'd want to face in the finals in an ideal world, and he said the Warriors. Not recently, this was a while ago, but right. I think there's a sense of like redemption. It's kind of the only way you can really redeem yourself from 2022 is by beating the same team.
Yeah, exactly. And that shows you how much of a competitor that he is. He's just the guy who just never sits out games, and the fact that the Warriors have kind of been his boogeyman. Like he played severely below average in the finals, and then he played one of his worst games of the year back in I want to say it was December that the Warriors had the big comeback against him. And but yeah, like if there's one thing you can say about Jason Tatum is that you can't say that he's not willing to go up against a challenge. You could say like he's been a little consistent, but he shows up in big games and wants to be at his best. But yeah, like I agree for the most part with with everything that was said there. Yeah, like all of those teams have potential. Obviously AD can anchor the Lakers defense to like go up against the Thunder. The Lakers have kind of gotten the best of the Thunder this year. The Suns, yeah, both KD and Booker have shown they probably not matched up. They probably fought Denver the best last year. They pushed them to 6 games because KD and Booker just both played fantastic in the conference semifinals, but even that wasn't good enough. The Mavs have been much better defensively lately since they got Gafford, and I forgot the other one. They got someone else. I forgot who. I think it was Lively's been on the team, but they made those couple of trades. What was that?
PJ Washington.
Washington, that's right. Yeah. And who's the last team I was talking about? Oh yeah, and then Golden State, obviously. Yeah, obviously you can never count out Steph Curry in a playoff series. So all of those teams are definitely teams to look out for out west. But yeah, like all of us gave our picks, but or not our picks, but like our best ones. So I guess yeah, that's pretty much everything we have. But yeah, no, I know I had to do it at the beginning of the show, but if you can do it maybe at the end, maybe just give a couple plugs for yourself.
Yeah, thanks for having me. You can find most of my work on Twitter or X at Noa Dalzell NBA. You can sign up for my newsletter there. You can see all the Celtics coverage. Yeah, appreciate it.
Absolutely. Yeah, thanks so much for coming on. Yeah. It's always great to have people from inside the NBA come on. Matt, always a pleasure to have you on. But yeah, just a couple plugs from inside here. Like and subscribe to Chilltown Hoops. This is become a member as well, so you can eventually join the show as well. Personally, a couple of my plugs. Follow me, as you can see on the bottom of the banner there. All American Hooper on all social media platforms on Instagram, X, and TikTok. Also follow my column on primetimesportstalk.com. And thanks so much for tuning in, everyone. And I hope everyone has an awesome day.
Awesome. Thank you.